All right, it is going.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. We got a very exciting talk coming up for you. Um, our speaker really needs no introduction. He is one of the shining stars in our industry, someone I've grown to know very well over the years. And I've also been a recipient of his hard work. Um, I will go ahead and read his bio because he's involved with a lot of things, and I think that's something you guys should know about. Um, Michael Carter Jr. is 11th generation American farmer uh, and is a 5th generation to farm on Carter Farms, his family's Century Farm in Orange County, Virginia, where he gives workshops on how to grow and market ethnic vegetables. With VSU, he's the Small Farm Resource Center Coordinator for the Small Farm Outreach Program. VABF and Virginia Food Check Capital have him sit on their respective board of directors. He also serves as the state coordinator for the Black Church Food Security Network and as the food safety coordinator for the 6th state farm to table organization. He acquired an agricultural economics degree from North Carolina A&T and has worked in Ghana, Kenya, Israel as an agronomist and organic agricultural consultant. As a cliometrician, I'll need to figure out what that is, curriculum developer and program coordinator for his educational, cultural, and vocational platforms, Hennessem, Our Story, and Africulture. He teaches and expounds on the contributions of Africans and African Americans to agriculture worldwide and trains students, educators, and professionals in African cultural understanding, empathy, and implicit bias recognition. Michael has been a board member of Food Shed Capital since January 2020. He is an 11th generation American farmer. We said that already. Let me jump to the last paragraph. Okay, I think we stated all of that. So now that you got his background, I will move out of the way and let you jump in right now. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. My name is Michael Carter, and I think probably the biggest, or my best or most honored title that I have is as a father. So you'll see one of my sons here assisting me. So if you see a little guy with hair like mine on the screen, he's not a stranger. He's my son. Yeah. So he'll join me today and help me out maybe a little bit. So I want to welcome everybody to this presentation with Africulture. I hope you enjoyed the conference thus far. I'm very appreciative and honored to be able to share with you a little bit about what I've grown to know about the various crops that we produce on Carter Farms at Africulture. And I'd be remiss as I start any speech or anything I do, we have a small moment of silence to honor those individuals who've come before us, our ancestors, our elders, the great spirits in whichever form or fashion they were in beforehand and maybe in now. Let's take 30 seconds or so to honor them. Ashe, Mela, Sela. So again, welcome to Africulture. And I look forward to having some of y'all come into our farm. We do our learning circles with the beginner farmer circle group. I enjoy having people in my farm. And I'm gonna do something to start off with, which I usually don't do on Zoom because it's kind of awkward, but I like doing awkward stuff. What I generally do on my farm, and I want you to repeat after me, it's a call and response. Call and response is the African tradition. When I say something, I give you instructions of what to say after the fact. So when I say it, then you say it. and you generally model it after how I say it. And I do it in the language of Free, which is the Ghanaian language. Everybody, clear your throat, repeat after me. Medo Asasi.
Medo Asasi. Do you want us off mute? Sorry.
I want everybody off mute. I'm breaking all the Zoom rules today.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. I'm indigenous, but I'm about it.
Very good. All right, so repeat after me. Don't repeat after what she just said. Medo Asasi.
Medo
Asasi.
Sasi.
Medo. Oh. Asasi.
Asasi.
Medo Sase.
Asasi.
Sassy.
This was totally not how I planned it. What? All right, we're gonna try this one more time. Medo. Asasi.
Sassy.
Sassy.
Asasi.
And now we're gonna do it in English one time, okay? I love the land.
I love the land.
The land.
Very good. Very good. It's much more fun when you're on the farm, but thank you for sharing with me. Now everybody put this stuff on mute because I hear a lot of feedback. Thank you. I think I got everybody. Well, again, welcome to only one guy. Okay, welcome to Carter Farms again and Africulture. I am Michael Carter Jr. With Carter Farms. It is stated I'm a 5th generation farmer on my family's Century Farm in Orange County, Virginia. We focus on growing ethnic vegetables, and now we're doing agritourism. We do some small cattle, at least my cousins, my uncle does some cattle, some swine, hay, and other things like that. I run Carter Farms, which is our farm, and our nonprofit is called Africulture. Africulture pretty much expounds on the principles, practices, plants, and people of African descent that contribute to agriculture. Our goal is to really challenge the myth and the conception about African Americans and agriculture in terms of how we relate and understand agriculture, and in terms of really having an idea of slavery pretty much every time we think about agriculture or something that's denigrating. As an African American with strong roots within Virginia and within Africa as well, you know, we are Africa, we are agriculture. And we'll be talking about some of the things we've done thus far. And this is some of the shoulders of the individuals whom I stand on. The lady to the right with the glasses on, that is my great-grandmother. We call her Gran. Everybody say hi, Gran. So this is my great-grandmother and some of her children and grandchildren, who are the grandchildren of my uncle's generation, my father's generation. And my great-grandmother's parents, Jefferson Davis Shirley and Catherine Walker Shirley, purchased our property in 1910 for $722.05. And it was about 150 acres. And we've been on that land ideally since then. We've had various challenges on the land at different points. We almost lost the land in 1929 during the Great Depression. My grandmother came to the aid of the family along with some of the gentlemen in the back there, some of my uncles, who pretty much sacrificed their World War II pay to pay off the debt that was on the land and to make sure the land stayed in the family. So I'm forever grateful for their sacrifice, for their vision for their mission to make sure that we had something. Even though they didn't know me, they prepared a place and prepared a land for me. And I'm forever grateful and thankful for what they've done. And I show my little contribution here and on the next slide. And that's more of my family there. There's a little guy like standing in front of a woman. That's my Aunt Ruth. And he has on a little white t-shirt and a long head. That's my father. My father's the one with a little long head. That's second from the right. Second from the right, yeah. So that's, we've been on the land for a long time. That's in front of the land. That's Amy Rose. When you came to the land, that's the front of where the fence is. So yeah, that's my family there. I'm forever grateful for what they've done to make sure I had something as well. A lot of times you don't appreciate it till you're gone. I definitely did appreciate it till I left for Africa. And at Africulture, we've kind of adopted a mindset or principle of growing for your ethnic type. I'm sure we've heard of the book Growing for Your Blood Type. But in reality, you have to grow for your ethnic type and eat for your ethnic type. Every ethnicity, no matter where they are in the world, has a specific food that fits their DNA, genetic, and molecular structure to provide them proper health and longevity in that particular environment. And our goal at Africulture, at least our newest goal for 2022, is to grow those crops, provide those crops to really challenge a lot of the ills that the African American community faces. There's a lot of crops we don't eat. And with the standard American diet, there's a lot of things that we eat that we probably shouldn't eat, especially in the proportions that we eat it. So I'm looking forward to trying to get back to more of an ethnic or African way of eating, because my lineage is more African than anything else. We do have indigenous in the family as well. And I encourage you to explore the same to ensure longevity and prosperity in your health. As I tell anybody, growing is easy. Whenever you plant a seed, you don't do anything but plant a seed and water it. You ain't got to grow leaves. You ain't got to give instructions on how to grow leaves. You don't do anything in terms of helping them understand how to grow roots. All we do is plant the seed and watch it do what it do. And in that process as well, you have failure. And failure is a necessary aspect of growth. So I encourage everyone, if your growing doesn't grow or go the way you planned it, keep going. Because eventually you're going to grow. Any land that you come across has billions, trillions, gazillions of seeds in the soil. And once those conditions are right, that's when they'll see success. And it's not always going to be right. And it may not always be right in the right time, but eventually you'll be successful. So for anyone who's just starting or, looking to, have had challenges in the past, please don't be discouraged. Growing is the easiest thing to do. All you got to do is grow. And growing, and when I say grow, all you got to do is grow your understanding about what the process is. Mm-hmm. And what are ethnic vegetables? For our definition of how we define ethnic vegetables, pretty much any plants, vegetables, herbs, trees that are not traditionally grown in the U.S., but imported to the U.S. are currently grown on a smaller scale in the U.S. And these usually are derived from other cultures, other countries, other continents. And why you should grow ethnic vegetables? Because it's a great thing to do. A lot of the crops we're talking about, they morph themselves in many ways here. And again, I'm a stronger believer. I love soil science, and I really believe the way the bacteria and the protozoa and the fungi work with the soil when they are in your soil, no matter where they are, but usually in the US. It does something to the soil and to you in terms of the nutrition that you get from those plants. There's in my eyes, or my interpretation, there's a historical / biological connection between the biology in the soil, the biology in the food that make up the minerals, the nutritional components in that food that ultimately feeds your cells. And this particular area really fascinates me because you can change your DNA for the good or for the bad, depending on how you approach and what you're eating in terms of the food that you grow and what you eat. I love the idea of growing things from my lack of a better term, motherland from the African continent. It gives me another connection to Africa when I can see that things can grow. And I find it to be a very spiritual and enlightening thing because I'm growing what my ancestors would have grown, prior to us being taken and brought here. And that gives me another connection to the land. And in my presentation, there's gonna be several Afromercials. This is our first one here. This particular Afromercial is about a great gentleman named Lewis Lattimore. Lewis Lattimore, without him, I'm not sure if we would all be in the dark. No pun intended. Lewis Lattimore is a tremendous, brilliant man who doesn't get enough credit for what he's done in terms of inventions that have changed the modern course of time. Lewis Lattimore family came from Norfolk, Virginia, and moved to Massachusetts when he was very young. They were free people in Norfolk, but to remain free, they moved to Massachusetts. And he invented what's called the carbon filament that's in the light bulb. And I'm gonna make some connections here later on. I like to do connections. But I'm gonna make a connection after this next Afromercial rather, to help you understand the importance of him and how it fits into Africulture. Because a lot of times we don't relate a lot of these inventions and their understanding of how they were able to do what they did via agriculture. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna ask you a question, and anybody who has an answer, unmute yourself. So what do you think this has to do with agriculture, besides the official thing of light bulbs and providing light? Beyond that, how do you think Lewis Lattimore's invention of the carbon filament is related to agriculture?
Is it something with the carbon?
Something with the carbon, that's a very good answer, yes. What is that thing? You got an idea?
Say that again.
You have an idea what that thing is?
The atmosphere?
That's a macro answer that I wouldn't give that as a correct answer, but ideally as you creating a vacuum and having an atmosphere, like, yes, that could work as well. But that's not the answer I was looking for.
Plant carbon?
Plant carbon, yeah. Which plant in particular? And it's an African crop that people really don't see as an African crop, but it's a very common crop. And if you don't know, I'll go to the next one and then we'll make the connection in just a minute, okay?
Water leaf?
Water leaf?
No.
Water leaf. Good answer, but no. All right, I'm gonna go to the next one and then we're gonna see if we can make those connections, okay? The next Afromercial is Mrs. Mary Patrice Kenner, who created the sanitary belt. So she ultimately invented and created the sanitary pad to go along with the belt. So she is the inventor of the sanitary pad, the maxi pad, you know. And it was through her dealings with agriculture that she decided that she needed to have some comfort in that area. I don't know what was being done before. As a man, I am so naive to any of this. But I know her brilliance created an industry that was necessary and needed, and ultimately changed the course of human history, and one of the most influential inventions, I think, on the planet. So Miss Kenner is the creator of the sanitary pad. And in that sanitary pad, what's the relationship now between the sanitary pad and agriculture?
Cotton?
Cotton. Mm-hmm. So cotton is a relationship there. And it's also a relationship.
Food safety.
Food safety. Good one, Thelonis. I'm trying to skip to the next slide. Yeah. And then, the relationship with cotton, as well as the light bulb, also, and I'll tell a little story with that. The Miss Lattimore when he was younger, he observed the enslaved population and other Black populations. We're using the slave population though. He observed them lighting cotton seeds. And it served as a way to have I guess a Bible light or light source for them when they were in the cabins or at night. And they would light cotton seeds to guide their way. And he utilized that to create the carbon filament. He broke down what that particular practice was. And by observing the enslaved Africans lighting the cotton seed, he broke it down. This is carbon that they're lighting. The oils from the cotton, along with the cotton itself, has carbon elements in it and created a life force. And this is how he was inspired to create the filament in the light bulb. Along with, he did the drawings for the telephone for Alexander Graham Bell. Without him, you probably wouldn't have a phone or light bulb that really worked. And some of his light bulbs to this day are still working or with this concept. Before there was planned obsolescence, they had light bulbs that would ideally run forever. And that was the challenge with Edison, is that he created a light bulb whose bulb couldn't stay lit that long. I'm trying to move my screen and it won't let me do that. All right, so that's cotton there. So King Cotton is that, and that's our Affirmation for the day, for right now. And this is one of the first crops that I like to talk about in terms of Africulture. And it's something that we know but don't know. Many of us know sweet potatoes, right? Everybody knows sweet potatoes. The sweet potato pie, you got candy yams, you got the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows in it, it's a hearty source. But how many of us actually eat the sweet potato leaves? None of us. A lot of times
Oh,
you end up eating.
yes.
Mhm.
Our community garden grew a huge crop of sweet potatoes, and people came and harvested the leaves to eat. And it was only the indigenous and Black community that did it. No white folks.
Yeah. And that's a progressive Black community, because I didn't know many Black communities that did it. I know a lot of indigenous communities that do it, and African communities.
Yes, indeed. They were some of the biggest consumers. And when we went to harvest, we saved those leaves, stripped them, and gave them out.
Absolutely. They're highly
And I
nutritious.
know that, and I was introduced to the grains, and it was referred to as sweet potato sweets, and it was cooked for me in a class.
Yep. So if you ever go to West Africa, you hear somebody, especially Liberia, Sierra Leone, that area, they'll tell you about potato greens. And that's generally what they eat. That's their main source of greens, are potato greens, which are sweet potato leaves. And it's an amazing thing because a lot of us do not eat the sweet potato leaves, but they taste exceptional. There's a lot of leaves that don't taste that hot. They're edible, but they don't taste good. But these actually taste okay. I've eaten them quite a bit when I was in Ghana. And there's in a lot of cultures as well within West Africa, they don't eat the yam or the fruit, the tuber from it. They just eat the leaves, especially in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And anybody who's grown sweet potatoes knows that it grows a lot of leaves. So there's a lot of production that can come from that. And indigenous communities find it, they enjoy them because you can't find them anywhere on the market. You can't go to any grocery store that I know of, mainstream grocery store, that you can find sweet potato leaves. Yet every year you grow sweet potatoes, you have more greens than you know what to do with. So there's a tremendous market within the African community and the Asian community, and probably even the indigenous and the growing number of Black communities who are adopting eating these greens. And in particular, you can really grow these as almost like a patio crop, where you can put a sweet potato or something in, you see people put it in little glass jars, you give them to sprout out, and you can eat those greens. You don't even need to have a field of sweet potatoes. I've done it where we put in just a little salad container, and let my sons water it and just, put it in the sun and let the greens grow, and we just eat the greens. You probably need at least 4 or 5 potatoes to get a decent amount of greens. But once they start growing, they go. And then you see here on the right side, I was in an Asian store in Richmond, and this is what I saw on the shelf: dried sweet potato stems. And then I saw the price. I'm like, good God Almighty! This is
So you have a couple
$8.
questions already.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got
No,
yeah,
it's
sorry.
okay. Can I don't want you to move on from sweet potatoes. So we have,
Yeah.
what is the nutritional content? And
Mhm.
then what was the other name used for sweet potato leaves?
Okay. Well, the other name is potato leaves. That's generally what people know them as. Potato greens, I'm sorry. So I know Sierra Leone, Liberia, I would say probably anywhere that's considered the old grain coast, going all the way up from probably north of Burkina Faso, going up to about maybe up to Mali or Senegal. You're gonna have those known as potato greens. The nutritional value for that, they're actually, very high in vitamin A, high in iron, calcium. They're not, because they don't have the orange color like the potato itself. They're not as high in vitamin A, beta carotene as the tuber itself. But you got to figure it comes from the leaves generating that, the sunlight into beta carotene or vitamin A. So they still have a higher amount of vitamin A than probably any other green. So they'd be good for those with eyesight, challenges, sight issues. They got folic acid is another ingredient or another component that's in there. Folic acid, vitamin E. So they're probably more nutritious than the collards and the kale that we generally eat. With the other questions, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had muted myself. I think that was it. Let me just check for you real quick. Where can you find them? I would say grow them, but do you have any?
You can't find them. You can find them on your farm. Again, and this, part of this is marketing opportunities. So there are markets out here who are looking for potato greens. You have to get to know, those communities, those individuals who come from even some East Africans, West Africans, and African stores. And I would say, especially if you're in Maryland, there are a slew of African grocery stores. I mean, just from Northern Virginia, from Woodbridge to Alexandria, there's about 8 Ghanaian African grocery stores that we used to sell to. We tried to sell to anyway. We couldn't really meet the demand. If you go from in DC alone, there's another maybe 3 or 4, probably about 6 or 7 African restaurants who are looking for a level of authenticity. And then you get outside of that, you go into Maryland, into, I'll say from PG County on up to Columbia, there's at least another 6 to 8 African grocery stores as well. Nigerians, Ghanaians, Liberians, and I believe in Beltsville or in Greenbelt, there's a Nigerian wholesaler does a lot of Nigerian or a lot of African vegetables that he sells to those stores. So there's a lot of opportunities for the ethnic market there. It's one of the main areas that we really focus on because the DC area has the second largest population of Africans outside of Africa. And the first place is New York, second place is DC area. It's a tremendous market, a highly educated market with a great amount of expendable capital, because most immigrants who come from those areas are very well educated. So they are professors, lawyers, doctors, nurses, et cetera. So they have an expendable amount of income. And what I experienced when I was living in Ghana was I would have paid practically anything for, a bunch of collard greens. Not anything, but I would have paid probably $4 or $5 for a bunch of collard greens because there was none there. So what we did was grew kale. We grew orange sweet potatoes because there's no orange sweet potatoes there, only white sweet potatoes, and sold it to the American market in Ghana. The market we sold to was right next to the American embassy. And every Saturday, and it was, it did well. We did broccoli, and we were selling broccoli for, a tremendous amount of money because of the hotter climate in Ghana, having the cool crops, the brassicas was just not a thing. So broccoli was selling for probably was equatable to about $10 to $12 a pound in that area. So I understood from that point what my, my demand was, but it's understood that, the market, supply and demand, and understand how to create a market and how to really tap into a market.
Michael, real quick, just from your experience, how would you recommend selling the sweet potato greens here, like by the bunch, by the pound? What sort of prices?
By the bunch, I'm a strong believer, especially in dealing with Africans and and just indigenous markets. Other markets, I set my price high because in most cultures they want to negotiate. So the higher you are, the easier it is to negotiate to a price you want to get to. What I don't recommend, or there's another way that I would recommend, is probably a pick your own at your place, because sweet potato leaves can be so profuse. You can get a garbage bag full of sweet potato leaves in no time. It helps you out and also helps them out. They feel like they get a lot, but they get a whole bunch of stems as well, and sell it for maybe $3 a pound or something like that. They're not heavy, but the stems add weight to it. I know my godfather in agriculture, Mr. Cliff Slade, he invited some individuals. He's the sweet potato guru, and he didn't see the value of it. And he invited some individuals, some individuals from an Asian store came and visited his farm and said, "Can we have those?" And he said, "Sure." Next season they came down and wiped out all those things. He went to the store and they were selling for like $8 a pound. That was the last time he gave them away. But it's a matter of, understanding and seeing the value. Because growing up, they fed this to the pigs. And this is another aspect of Africulture that we really want to challenge, is that a lot of our more nutritious, healthier crops were denigrated just like people were. The Africans were denigrated, and so was their cultural produce. So we experienced a level of ethnic botanical racism, starting with the king scientist of ethnic botanical racism, that would have been Carl Linnaeus, who created the botanical nomenclature that we use today when you talk about sweet potatoes. I don't know the scientific name for it, but it's based upon Carl Linnaeus's principles of science, the systems of nature, which really labeled the African as lazy and worthless. And unfortunately, they saw the same thing with our food, and anything that was considered, in my eyes, that was considered to be of any value in the African context was attributed to another nation, and a nation outside of Africa. Because you'll see moringa, you'll see, various trees, and now the origin of this is India, or the origin of this is South America. It's like, if Africa is the mother continent, the kind of, all things kind of spring out of Africa, we ain't got no origin, nothing. Only thing you give us is the cowpea. Anyway, I digress.
So Nikisha actually wants to know about this a little bit more. How long did it take you to assess and know what the demand was and what the market would bear?
How long? 10 years, maybe? It comes with a lot of experiences, because, you got to figure, we've been growing sweet potatoes in America for the last, since 1650. It's been a long time since we grown sweet potatoes. And some of the things we were divorced from, or we couldn't do, or didn't do, historically, just because of the enslavement periods and just the reality of that situation. When we got out of that, some of the things were just lost in our memories. We stopped doing certain things. And then we did certain things because that's all we could do. And it seemed that we did those things because we were poor. So once we got a little bit of money, a little bit of education, we stopped doing those things. So we start trying to get hot dogs and hamburgers as opposed to dealing with the greens that we ate on a regular basis. Now we want to fry chicken every day as opposed to just on Sunday, because now we got some money and some education. So I think it's kind of taken us, and I'll speak for myself, it's taken me, it's taken a while. When I first got back from Africa, though, you're talking about 5 years in Africa, when I was living in Ghana, working on farms. And I started eating the greens probably in the second year. And then I returned back, I talked to Uncle Cliff about, the greens, and, next thing you know, started selling them. So it took a little while, to say the least. And let me go to my next one, because we'll spend, next 40 minutes on sweet potatoes. This is one of my favorite greens. I love this green. I mean, like, every time I'm in Ghana, this is the only green I eat for the, Ghana, Nigeria, any place I can get this green, I love it. And many of us know this is elephant ear. And it's become a very popular landscape plant. But this is in Ghana. It's called inkatumari. It's also called taro roots, and these would be considered taro leaves. In the Caribbean, you hear people call it cocoyam and cocoyam leaves. And this is one of those things that I stumbled upon when I first arrived back to the U.S. in 2017 after a 5-year stint in Ghana. It was like my second trip to the grocery store in America in 5 years. And I happened to run across this at a grocery store, the tubers. And I knew the tubers because we had it in Ghana. So I said, I'm gonna try to plant this. I was at my parents' house. I put it in the garden, and I left back to Ghana. And came back in like September, October, and it had sprouted a little bit. And then during that wintertime, we had the worst winter I'd experienced, where it was like 2017 going to 2018, it was like 5 degrees, like all January. But come April, May, these things pop back up. So then I realized, okay, these things they're resistant to the cold weather. So, and they've been popping back up now for the last, I want to say, I got back in 2017, planning 2017, this is 2022. If they come up again this year, this will be the 5th year they've returned. And the cocoyam, it spreads. So the roots, it grows more roots underneath the ground. So you'll find new leaves coming up every season. The cocoyam has a unique, it has a unique profile. You cannot eat these raw. It contains an acid called oxalic acid, and the oxalic acid will irritate any human tissue or animal tissue. So if you get it on your hand, it's like a little white residue or liquid that comes out when you harvest it. If you were to lick that, it would irritate your tongue. When you had that scratchy, like, it irritates. And I found that out the hard way. I was harvesting them, and me being a diehard vegan and trying to be super healthy, I'm gonna eat these raw in Ghana. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was the worst type of reaction. But these things are also very good for deer. Deer don't like them because it gives the same type of reaction to the deer in terms of the oxalic acid irritates their tongue and their mouth, and they don't have like hands to even scratch their mouth, so they gotta and then they go on about their way. However, they will eat what's around it, so you got to plant it and kind of hide it within it. And these you have to stay in, like say in Ghana, you have to cook them well, which means you got to saute them for a long time. With inkatumari in Ghana, they prepare it with palm oil, various seasonings, and then a green called a seed called a gushi seed, which is akin to the watermelon. And the gushi seeds are pounded as like a powder within this, and it's so ridiculously delicious. If you could ever get a gushi stew, it's awesome. The opportunity for you in terms of market becomes if you go to the Ghanaian or a Nigerian store or a restaurant, they're going to have a gushi stew, but they're not going to use taro leaf or inkatumari. They're going to use spinach, and it does not do it any justice. So they've been my biggest customers. I've taken these to stores, and they usually sell out within about 30 to 45 minutes. I'll be dropping them off, and then the guy angry at me that I don't have any more, and I can't bring any more back for like another 2 or 3 weeks. So there's a tremendous opportunity for this one. I'm actually inviting competition for this one because it's so much demand. Sincerely, I cannot keep up with it, not even remotely.
Which part of the plant are you selling?
The leaf.
The leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
you'll see if you go to an African store, you'll see the bulb sold, or Asian store, Latino stores as well. You'll see the bulb sold. There are about 6 different varieties that I've seen. You'll see Edo, EDO. Edo will produce a convex leaf, like one you see here. There's another one I want to say, and it starts with an M, and I just can't think of the name of it right now. It's right next to the Edo. I'm thinking about if you ever go to New Grand Market in Northern Virginia, I think maybe some in Maryland as well. They sell them. And the other one that starts with an M has a convex shaped leaf. They taste ideally the same, but I got told in one Ghanaian store, this is not the right one. We need the one that goes out like this and not the one that's convex. So I sold it to his brother. But
so Michael, I have a question about the taro leaf. I know that that's a big Hawaii product, and I know they eat the bulb. I mean, I think they eat the leaf as well, but not as much as they do the bulb, and they turn it into something called poi. So do you eat poi, or you just focus on the green leaf part of the taro plant?
I've never had poi, but I've heard about it. I'm gonna try to go to Hawaii to get some at some point in my life. But the reason why I sell the leaf is because the leaf is not available on the market. Like you can find taro roots in various stores, but you'll never find a leaf unless it's frozen. But the poi is another one that's definitely out there. And I don't know the Hawaiian market like that, but I know that you can get tubers. And because it's a tuber, its shelf life is a lot more stable, or I guess not, than the leaf. So the leaf, from a market perspective, provides me a better return. I get more leaves, and then when you dig it up, or when you harvest the leaves, you get more leaves. When you dig up the tuber, that's it.
Yeah, it's not. I just got back from a trip to Hawaii. I'm not big on the poi myself, but I know it's a staple food for them. They absolutely love it. They did mention eating the taro leaf, but not as much as the bulb part. So I guess it just varies from different regions and different ethnicities. So
and this particular leaf, this particular leaf is one of those ones that is usually the main green leaf in that particular culture. I know in Ghana, this is like the staple. This is like this is the collard green of Ghana in Nigeria. This is the leaf that everybody eats on a regular basis, or spinach. This would be the spinach version. It can grow in droughts. It can grow in standing water. Insects don't bother it. It's almost the perfect plant, except you can't eat it raw. And again, from my perspective, if I were to sell the tubers, I wouldn't have a crop because I would keep digging up the tuber and I wouldn't have the leaf. So it's like for me, people want the tuber, but I'm like, no, because I get more money ideally from the leaves than I will ever get from the tubers. The tubers you probably find in the store for about $1.50 a pound, where I can get $5 to $6 a pound for the leaves.
So Michael, can you talk more about the concerns with planting this? You mentioned it had some like invasive tendencies. So what people need to be mindful of in that regard?
And I wouldn't say necessarily they wouldn't be invasive because they always die back. They will spread a little bit, but not a lot. I would say first and foremost, do not try to eat the ones that you get from Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or a gardening store. You don't want the ornamental varieties. The ornamental varieties are generally hybrids, so you'll see the different colors in it or the white, to make the leaves nice. Never eat those. I won't say eat those. I buy them by the tubers by the case from a Asian store that would be selling them for food. Because I know the tubers are being sold for food, I'm pretty much sure that the leaves are going to be okay to eat. They haven't been modified for ornamental purposes. And then I would say plant it. I mean, they're going to keep coming back. They're not going to spray it too much. They definitely won't be invasive. So the white ones are not edible. Only the solid green ones. They got white, they got specks of white or specks of purple and magenta and pink. No, don't mess with those. Just the solid green ones. You want ones that are food grade and designed for food consumption. And you probably can see at the bottom of that as well. And then, again, same Asian store I went to right next to the sweet potato leaf stems was dried taro sticks. $8.49. I'm like, good gracious. So there's definitely a market within the Asian community and the African community. And I think once the African American community figures out how to grow it and cook it well, it's a market for them too. And if you look at the bottom of that page there, you see the little tuber. It's a round ball. Some of them have a little, stem kind of pointing out. You can plant them any kind of way. I can't remember the scientific term, but they can always find the sky and the soil. So they're always gonna, the leaves are always gonna come out from the top. Now you guess you can't plant them any kind of way. You'll see a little pointing in on usually some of these. And that's the pointing in is you want up. That's where the leaf is coming out of. But they also will leaf or send leaves out of all sides of the root. So if you do plant it backwards, they'll figure it out and they'll send some other roots up along the side or leaves up along the side. This is a great conversation, a great question. So I don't mind extending this out, to get through it. If y'all game, I'm game.
Well, there was just one question asking about, would you recommend digging up the tubers before the frost? I guess similar manner you would with ginger and turmeric.
No, I wouldn't. That's going to help it to grow back, and you'll get more next season. I haven't dug mine up at all, and as you see, I use the landscape fabric as well. So it'd be a pain in the behind to dig that up and put that. It's easy for me to keep it there, and go from there. If you want to dig them up, it's cool, but they are definitely frost and winter resistant. They're gonna pop back up in May, June every year. All right, I'm gonna go to the next crop. I've only spent 30 minutes on 2 crops here. At this rate, we'll be done by Tuesday. This next one is another crop that's very popular in the Caribbean, also in Africa. It's native to Africa. And you'll see it as callaloo or amaranth. Again, Africans will call it spinach, a lot of them. And here we have pigweed, which is his cousin. Not even his cousin, I would say it's more sister. I often refer to us African Americans as genetically modified Africans. And I think it's very much in the same way. A lot of our plants have ultimately become hybrids here in here to adjust to this environment, just like many African Americans have. So you'll find many variations of the amaranth plant throughout the country. And this is another one that's drought resistant. I won't say it's not necessarily flood resistant, but it can grow pretty much anywhere. I've never seen them not germinate and have a high germination rate. And if you know anything about amaranth, the seeds are plentiful. And you cook this is like you would spinach, collards, Swiss chard, etc. This is like the easiest plant to grow. If you don't think you have a green thumb, or get a couple of seeds of this, put it somewhere, and it'll do its thing. It hasn't seen any type of soil it doesn't like. This has a very good market as well in Caribbean stores and African stores. I know, Thelonious, you sell it, right?
Yeah, I sell a lot of callaloo, mostly to a lot of like Jamaican restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, this is it sells well. Price for it varies, depends on the market, but you can find some obscure Caribbean, Jamaican restaurants who don't get callaloo at all, and not necessarily close to cities, and you probably can get a little better price for it. But it does do very well, grows very well. I would say it's insect resistant, but the holes on these leaves would say contrary. I think we had a little bit of problems. I'm sorry, question?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask how much sun the callaloo and the
good question.
and the taro need. We started an African garden at Latimer last year, and so far we only have moringa and waterleaf, and we're looking to add some plants. But we've cut back some of the trees around the area. It's like next to our building. So I'm just not sure that it's going to get full sun. I just wanted to know if either of these plants might be okay with partial sun, or maybe 6 hours or less of sun a day?
6 hours or less would be difficult. And I thank you for asking that question. That's a really great question. And please email me about your garden. I mean, the African garden you're doing. I'll be interested in providing seeds for you all, even some counsel or something that can help out in terms of that. We sell seeds. The taro can do okay in a without sun or limited sun. I said without sun, limited sun. So a lot of times you'll find, I wish I had a picture of it. The oldest cocoa farm in Ghana has taro leaf all up in it. And as I mean, so you have a total tree canopy, but the taro leaf is there right next to it. And this particular cocoa farm has been there since 1879, the first cocoa farm in Ghana. We'll talk about that in one of our other affirmations. The amaranth can do okay without sun, 6 hours or so. Once, this particular type of weed, or not weed, but it has weed-like tendencies. So it's gonna find a way to grow extensively no matter what. So it doesn't need, it will adapt. It's like, I mean, and I say this in all, like the African Americans done in America. No matter what conditions you find it in, it has adapted to that to survive. And I think we're a exact personification of a lot of these plants where we do what they've done. So, both of these plants don't need much sun. So I would plant both of those against, against the wall where it's not gonna get as much shade. It may reduce the height a little bit, and you may see some yellowing on the taro leaves on the edge, but it will still grow and grow well. And it'll be there. And even if you don't sell it, it's good for representation. It's not going to not grow. But thank you for that question.
Thank you for the answer.
Are we good with callaloo? We're gonna go to the next one if there's no questions. Oh, but
Well, there was a question related to harvesting.
I harvested. I just pluck off the leaves. Utilizing your thumb and your second finger, your finger next to the thumb, and just pluck it off at the stem, kind of sort of. So you have a little bit of stem, but a lot of leaves. And it's pluck and come again. Unfortunately, the way these grow, you can't use like one of those salad cutter things you get from that you can generally harvest, lettuce and spinach with. You have to generally do it by hand. And it takes some time. Once you get pretty good at it, it can work, but it's still, you hand harvest it and it's go up the leaf and it's pick all the leaves as you go, leaving the stem. Occasionally you leave the leaves, and the younger the leaves are, usually the more tender they are. As they get older, they're a little tougher, but these are, these aren't tough. So it'll be difficult for you unless you're a seasoned callaloo eater to be able to tell how old the leaves are based upon harvesting.
And I will add that at least my clientele prefer the young leaves. So you really don't want to miss a week of harvesting because they get big quick.
And there's another question there, the market for the other variety. For the thick leaf, the thick leaf you're talking about is the red variety, or I would have to see what kind of thick leaf you're talking about in terms of that.
I'm the one that posted the thick leaf. I had two problems with it. When I harvest, I don't know if I harvest too late, it was bitter.
Yeah.
And what was the market for the thick leaf? What is the market for the thick leaf?
I haven't seen much market for the thick leaf, but I think, if you got bitterness, it's you waited too long to harvest it. But I haven't seen much market for the thicker leaf. I've seen it just for the thinner leaves that I know of. And then I've seen a greater market, it seems, for the red variety of the amaranth than the straight up green one. But I've seen both, but there's the red one seems to have a little more, and the red one usually is a little lower growing. The ones I grow are taller. And I can't remember, there's one, I want to say F-O-T-E-T-E, I believe is a variety that we have, Fotet. And I'm getting some variety in, hopefully the next couple of weeks as well. That grows a little lower. The thick leaf, though, I don't know what variety, and I would certainly encourage you. No, I'm not gonna know exactly what market it will be for the thicker leaf, and especially for one that maybe is for lack of a better term, overgrown, was not as tender as the market may like. Hope I answered your question.
You
Would I
did.
ever
Thank you
buy-
very much.
Okay. Would I ever buy seed for amaranth when it's grown as a weed everywhere? There are different varieties. So, I mean, I would do something that I bought seed. I bought a lot of amaranth seed from Johnny's and the red variety especially. And for me, I just want to make sure, I mean, we grow our own seed now, but I would want to make sure that the source is proper. Because what you see with a lot of these as well is that the wilder varieties have grown thorns and are not as edible. So I would stay away from some of the wild varieties, because even with the wild varieties, they can enter, they will mix with the pollen of some of those. You know, because you'll see bees, the way, you know, they shoot up the seed stalk, you'll see bees around them early. And those bees, you know, are messing around with the other amaranth varieties as well. So you can see some cross pollination going on. You want to make sure that you don't have a variety that has thorns. I generally try not to mess with any ones that have thorns in terms of trying to eat them, because most likely they've developed a thistle-like behavior that I wouldn't want to ingest for the sake of my liver, or, you know, or other things. Usually milk thistles and other things that go those thorns and thistles like that. Usually good for liver, but not for more medicinal than it is for edible. Yeah, Miss Burton and Tyler Farms, Dr. Burton definitely is a great source for callaloo. You know, we work with her, she provides us seeds, we provided them seeds. We'll be doing a workshop with her in March on callaloo and a couple other African crops out in UMES. I'm gonna go to the next plan here.
Just a time check, Michael, you got about 17 minutes.
You asked me how long this is gonna be. We ain't gonna make it halfway through this thing, man. I got 17 plants in there. You get on number 4. So the next one is one of my favorites as well. This is Lego spinach, or Nigerian spinach. It's a variety of celosia. This particular variety is from Nigeria. The variety we have, you'll see other celosias who have hybridized traits in which they send up the seed plume a lot faster than the more edible varieties. I would not recommend eating the more hybridized varieties that send up the plume, because I don't know, some of them also had the variations in the color of the leaves, and I just wouldn't feel comfortable with eating it, because I don't know how it's been hybridized in terms of taste. And when you have access to the PowerPoint, assuming we won't finish the whole list, we'll talk about it. I want to finish the whole list, but yeah, I'll make it available to you. And you know, this is a great green. It actually tastes extremely good. It grows just like the amaranth extensively. I heavy seeded. I mean, I only heavy seeded. I heavy planted. You know, I put one seed in each hole, and it fills up the whole row in, you know, 2 rainfalls. And you can look at the leaves on this one. There's very little insect pressures. The only thing that really has eaten on it a little bit is the Colorado potato beetle, which is the bane of my existence right now. They wear me out every season. But this one is a hardy one, strong in vitamin A, vitamin K, iron. It tastes very good. You can eat it raw or cooked. We did a dinner with Deron Chavis at in Richmond, and he served it raw. There were no injuries after that dinner. But it's a tasty green. I love it. I love the seed plume is awesome. The bees love it. Bees end up being all over it. It's easy to grow, easy to collect seeds from. It's an awesome plant. It's in my clay, and all these things are in my clay there. I'm using a lot of these also to kind of either pull up nutrients or kind of break up the soil a little bit. This to me be a great cover crop as well. I'm not sure how deep the taproot is, but I'm sure it's giving some great nutrients inside there. And I've grown this. This is our first year growing this, and it did superb in a very thick clay with very little rain. So it's another one that's drought tolerant, rain tolerant. So there was no drip irrigation or anything that we did. I hand watered it for a little while until I said this is enough for that. And for pretty much for the rest of the season, it was all rainfall or lack thereof. And it grew to be about 8 feet tall. So these get very tall. This variety anyway. You'll find other varieties, again, hybridized varieties that are used for ornamental purposes. They don't get as tall. Love the crop though, love the crop. Great, you cook this the same way you would, again, any other greens. I'm gonna go to the next one and try to I'm at 16 minutes now, right, Thelonious?
That,
16.
A little less, but yeah.
I'm doing my Jedi mind trick. 16.
16,
yeah. This here, another Afromercial. I mentioned cocoa, and cocoa is one of those things that never gets attributed to being African, and it's not in its origin, but it's African in its commercialization. This farm here is Tete Kwashi's farm. Tete Kwashi is pretty much the father of commercial chocolates. He started a farm, or started growing chocolate trees, cocoa trees in 1879, 1878. In a matter of 10 years, he was the number one producer of cocoa, and he shared seeds with folks, farmers around him. So Ghana became the number one producer of cocoa for the next 100 years.
The indigenous person in the room just gasped.
Not saying that it's based in South America, but it's not. It was commercialized by Tete Kwashi.
I hear you. I'm on it, but that is a really traditional indigenous to this continent plant, and was highly valued, and only the most wealthy were able to access it.
Absolutely,
So
I totally agree.
Thank him for bringing it to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. It was already, I'm not saying he bought it, he got it from there, but he did make it so it was commercially available, because it was the name of the black name is Theobroma cacao, food for the gods. It was highly sacred in the indigenous context here. Highly sacred. So sacred it was not commercialized. So Tete Kwashi commercialized it. That's why I say he's the father of commercialized chocolate. And his farm is still in Ghana, and they still have 3 of the original trees from that time period. So he has 3 of the original trees from 1879, 1880. Ghana and Ivory Coast have been the number 1 and number 2 producer of cocoa pretty much since its commercialization. So it's a great possibility that if you ever eaten chocolate, and most of us have, that you consume chocolate from Ghana and Ivory Coast.
Can I ask a question at this point? It's very relevant. So obviously I'm indigenous. I started a community garden. I grow a lot of indigenous corn plants, medicines, things, but I have also introduced traditional African plants, African black-eyed peas, mustards, greens, all kind of things. Is that ethical? Is it okay for somebody who is not African to try to reintroduce these plants to people who were displaced because of colonization, who are not Black, who are not African? Is that okay? I'm trying to educate, reintroduce traditional foods to people who have been displaced from their homelands. Is that ethical?
I won't speak for all Black people to say if it's ethical or not. I wouldn't have a problem with it. What I do and what I've done, is I want to expose individuals. One story that one of my mentors shared, I don't know if it's true or not, But he said he introduced Alex Haley to his roots. And he said he did this by placing, he's from Nigeria, Dr. Brahmi Lagare. And before he wrote Roots, probably right before he wrote an autobiography of Malcolm X, he was having dinner with Alex Haley. He was trying to explore his roots. And he gave him a soup. He gave him two soups. One was palm oil soup, and one was peanut soup or groundnut soup, in Kante and Kwan, groundnut soup. And he said, and he watched him eat the soups. And he noticed he wore out the peanut soup. And he said, you're most likely from the Senegambia area, because this is the area which we grew, this is where it's more indigenous to the peanut. So you'll be surprised what the foods will unlock in you. I don't think you're at, I personally, I wouldn't say that it's very much ethical to try to help people get back to their roots, however it happens. Because a lot of times it's not you, you're just a bridge. All you're doing is offering their genetic code to remember what it is they had. And a lot of times you eat something and you'll have a memory or flashback based upon what you ate. And that memory or flashback may not be, you may not remember who gave it to you. You may not remember what restaurant, but you remember the memory. So you're jogging or help jogging the memories of those individuals. So I don't think it's it's not an ethical, I wouldn't pose it as an ethical threat in any way, shape, or form. I think it's more so a service that hopefully can inspire others to do the same thing.
Well, one thing I am making sure I do is that any indigenous or African plants I grow, when I harvest seeds from them, only go to Black and indigenous people. So I'm trying to make sure that those seeds, that memory DNA goes back into the community it belongs in first before it goes anywhere else.
Understood. And I would encourage you to, again, have them and you just do more research on the stories, because we've had sweet potatoes before. The other plants that we'll talk about as well, there's a lot of plants that are African, they just don't get the credit for being African. So we eat a lot of things anyway, but we don't have the story to go with it. If you ever had Coca-Cola, if you ever drink Coca-Cola, the cola part comes from the cola nut, which is the West African nut that's highly caffeinated. And very few people ever put that together, that, Coca-Cola, most people know about the coca plant, but very few of us know about, the cola part. The cola part was the key ingredient to the Coca-Cola. Yeah, we drink it all the time, but a lot of us have no clue about the origin. So I would definitely say, this is not, for me anyway, you're doing the right thing. You're recognizing a need and helping to expose those individuals to that. And I'm doing the same thing. Just trying to share and educate. And hopefully I'm planting, as a farmer, my job is to plant a seed of knowledge, information in them. Like I said, the seed, the physical seed I put in the ground is one thing, but I also want to plant seeds of knowledge, of history, of identity, of culture that will hopefully germinate in them as well. And I think you're doing the same thing. That's the natural nature of a farmer. Indigenous farmer, African farmer, all farmers had that idea of planting seed. And that's all you're doing. And consider the information, the crops that you're sharing as a way of planting seeds, physically and metaphorically.
So Michael, I hate to interrupt, but this is another alert that we're coming up on time. So you can decide how much more you want to get through, but also just make sure you let people know how they can get in touch with you and when's the next, session that you'll be doing.
Very good. How much time is it really? I got 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, don't ask me. I actually want to save you from yourself, because I personally know that you have a deadline at 5 p.m., a grant deadline. So we want to make sure that you are able to continue the good work that you're doing. So
I was gonna push that off. I enjoy talking about this and some other stuff. So you can, so like I said, y'all game, I'm game. But I think I have a couple of workshops. You can go to our Carter Farms, thecarterfarms.com, and see our events. We're just updating the newest ones this week. So if you go to the site next week, you'll see our events. We'll have about 4 I'll be at the DABF conference, the next one, speaking on ethnic vegetables the same way. Hopefully not. That's next Sunday, and then we'll do some online things coming up, and then we have one March 12th or March 17th, I believe, at UMES as well.
Yeah, so I mean, you can keep going. We do have a keynote at 4 p.m. So
Okay.
you can. I'll let you
No
have
problem.
the last word here.
All right, I'll keep going. When y'all all log off, that's when I log off. This next one is, yeah, and I got a couple of different ones put in here, but this is called garden egg, or this plant here called boma. And then there's a plant that grows in my yard. That's that picture, that one right there to the left. I believe they call it, I gotta go look at my app here. Unnatural. It grows wild, but it's, it's a variation of the boma leaf and the garden egg. These are all nightshade varieties. Bitter ball is one that looks like horse nettle. That is horse nettle. That's what I'm looking for. Horse nettle and boma are brother, sister, if not cousins. Bitter ball, I'm trying to grow. I love bitter balls, or turkey berry, maybe you call it as well. They're all in the same family of an eggplant. The boma leaf out of Ghana, you can actually eat the leaf of the nightshade. What we brought to America as African Americans was a lot of knowledge about agriculture. Whereas, I mean, most of the colonizers didn't have certain understanding. And many of the indigenous may not have had the crops that's here to explore, or folks didn't listen to the indigenous, which is quite commonly the case. And folks didn't listen to the African Americans or the Africans that were here as well. Because it was believed in many cases the nightshades were poisonous. So I believe tomatoes were not eaten by Europeans for a very long time because they didn't have any knowledge of it. And many times I was also told that nightshade leaves are very poisonous. And some varieties may be. There are a few varieties that may be. There are several varieties that you can actually eat the leaves. And boma is one of those leaves, where the leaf is sold in markets all over West Africa. There's another variety called managu out of Kenya, East Africa, which is a staple crop for Kenya. That's a nightshade as well, akin to the huckleberry or the huckleberry, American huckleberry. It's very similar. They're probably brother and sister as well. So a lot of these crops are grown. This one produces a white little eggplant, the garden egg, which has a tremendous market in African stores all over the country. My friend John Monica Riza, he grows them and they ship them all over the country to various folks. Go to the next plant real quick. There's no questions. Manago, that's another one that I just mentioned there. I'm gonna go to the next one. That's Manago behind the plants here. It grows very well. It's bitter. I'm not a fan of Manago, to be honest. But Kenyan, East African enjoy Manago a little more than I do. A lot more than I do, actually. So you can go to Swahili Village in Beltsville and DC. We used to provide Manago for them. When they don't have Manago, they use spinach. Again, that's a market for a lot of us. Yeah, the variety is also eaten in Southeast Asia. They do the bitter ball. They do, in Thai and other Thailand, Indonesia, and other cultures. They also do those same eggplant varieties. Scotch bonnet peppers. Yeah, that goes without saying. That's a traditional part of, I would say, tropical nations, but definitely African nations, Caribbean nations, Asian nations. All of them eat hot stuff. We're the only people with sensitive mouths, I guess, who don't like as much hot stuff. Most of us, I think down south, folks even like hot sauce and hot sauce. But these peppers here grow extremely well at the farm, and it's a great market for these as well. And peppers sell all year round, especially if you have hoop houses or greenhouses. These sell all year round. All year round, I think. Thelonious, you probably grow some of these as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Another popular one for Jamaicans. Yep.
I'm gonna go through this Affirmation real quick. This is Henry Blair. Henry Blair has the patent for the corn planter or cotton planter. Henry Blair was enslaved in Silver Spring, Maryland. And while he was enslaved, he invented this contraption that changed the course of agriculture forever. all of your planters now, whether it be a Jane planter, Earthway seeder, or a giant John Deere 16-volt planter, all utilizes this patent for Mr. Henry Blair, who was able to create this while enslaved, which is an incredible feat in and of itself. In 1857, 1858, he holds a second patent for African American. Soon after he received this patent, it was somebody took somebody to court and made it so the enslaved Africans could not hold patents, so they had to give their patent information or provide the owners will hold their patents and benefit and profit from it. Okra, another popular plant. The indigenous name in Senegambia area for okra is actually gumbo. So when we're eating gumbo, we're eating okra stew. In Ghana, especially in the airway area, you hear okra as opposed to okra. But gumbo is as African can be. And this is another example of something that we eat on a regular basis already African. But it's but it's one of those things that is a possible. I mean, it's a great cultural plant. It grows extremely well. You cannot not grow okra. You plant a seed, you get okra. There's ands and buts about it. Only thing that stops okra is deer. My deer stunted the growth of my okra quite a bit. They come out and eat the tops, and at least last year they did that. This year they didn't do it as much. Another great African plant that grows profusely, always harvested young, and there's so many different varieties of okra. We do a one that takes back to 1600s, called the Freeman okra, which was held by the Catawba Nation of Southwest Virginia and Northwest North Carolina areas, and they've held it in their nation for at least 400 years. And I was able to get a few seeds or plants and grow them out for seed. Another unique crop is what's called jute. Other folks may call it palava, and usually in Northern Africa and many Arab-speaking countries, they call it malakia. And in some cultures, they also call it juice mallow. This was a staple crop. The jute here, this is the jute that you actually make rope out of, utilizing its stalk. This and okra both have that mucilaginous type relationship, or mucilaginous. I can never say that word. It has a lot of mucus in it. So when you cook it, it oozes out the extra stuff. I won't call it slime, but the extra membranes and proteins that come out of this and okra. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's a decent market for it.
I'm sorry to interject, but that is very relevant crop to grow, because that actually helps anyone who suffers from arthritis. It's anti-inflammatory. It's an important medicine.
Agreed. So you heard her. Buy some seeds, grow it. This is another one that's drought resistant. It grows. A lot of these crops, the only way you can not grow it is not to plant it. But if seeds go in the ground for it, it's going to germinate, it's going to do well. These ones are also relatively resistant to insects, and this has a great market. Egyptian spinach, yep, there you go. Cowpeas are another, traditional variety that's grown, that has been grown. Cowpeas, black-eyed peas, beans, they were brought here. It's another African crop that's been here, was brought here by the enslaved Africans. It was a staple crop for the enslaved and a great protein source because it is a legume. And it also helped to save and restore a lot of the agricultural components of the U.S. in terms of crop rotations. And this is one of the great things that Dr. George Washington Carver created outside of the advent of, utilizing the peanut, but putting these African crops in rotations for soil rotations, crop rotations, to restore the soil. I'm reading this question real quick. How many of these taller greens do you do a one cut harvest or cut and come again? You cut and come again, all those things, and I'll go back real quick to that. are hand harvested, and you harvest it by picking off the leaves, picking the leaves off the stem. So you just, you just use your thumb and your finger next to your thumb, and you would just pick it off the stem. And like you would if you had kale. So call it, same way of harvesting. So I don't harvest the whole stem, I harvest it off the stem. In West African cultures, I have seen it in markets where it's a whole stem, or at least a portion of the stem, but for the most part, it's harvest the leaf off. And you gotta forgive me, I'm moving kind of fast because of time. And this is Dr. Frederick Jones, creator of the refrigerated truck, another great agriculture innovation that really saved a lot in terms of produce. And Miss Ann Mangin, who created the spatula, which is another tremendous invention that you can't do a pancake without it. This is one of my favorite plants, not because it's edible, because it's not edible. It shows the intelligence of plants. This is an invert plant. It hates people messing with it. It wants you to stay in its own lane. But we call it a sensitive plant, Pudica mimosa. And it's one of those plants that when you touch it, it folds in. It's very much sensitive to touch. It's the plant that really helped to create the study of biology. The Frenchman who created the field of biology did experiments with this particular plant and built their whole biological study around it for the most part in terms of plant science. And there are two varieties. I have both varieties at my farm. One of them was a weed that was already there, which is always, just amazing to me. I didn't notice this until I'm at the farm and I'm like, okay, I planted this one and I see this thing here, like, and then you touch it and it doesn't do anything. But at night, the leaves fold in. So it's a nocturnal plant. And it may be partridge pea, I'm not sure. But during the day, it stays open. With a sensitive plant, anytime you touch it, and the seed, the flower colors are a little different. The sensitive plant has purple flowers. This particular one here has yellow flowers. And it folds in when you touch it. And then a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes later, it opens back up. But it kind of shows you the intelligence and the, I want to say human nature, but it's the intelligence of the plant, that it actually has an intelligence. And most plants, all plants have an intelligence. And this is one, for me, it's great for children to see. I was first exposed to the plant when I was in West Africa. I'm not sure if it's indigenous to that, but that's what I saw, and you touched it, and like, oh my goodness, all the children loved it. Yeah, it's a subspecies of mimosa, yeah, Pudica mimosa. So it's a great plant for children, for education. It really gets children and adults engaged in agriculture in a different way, because everybody wants to touch it to see what it does. Moringa. Moringa is a beautiful plant. It does everything. I don't even harvest this thing much. The harvesting process of this is a lot. Generally, you dry it in the sun, but cover it, so you don't expose it to the sun, because it would lose nutrients if you do it. And then you have to grind it up after it's dried. So I grow this more so just to grow it. It'll die back every winter, just died back after the snowfall here with me. But it'll come back, it'll come back every May, June. Moringa is a superfood. I think all foods are pretty much superfoods, but this one's a superbly, it contains a lot of nutrients, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, amino acids, essential, all that kind of stuff, amino acids. You could literally live off this in water and have enough sustenance to survive for some time. It's another one that's very easy to grow. The seeds do extremely well, and every part of this plant is edible. Not saying every part of the plant tastes good, but it is edible. and different parts of the plant are used for different purposes. The leaves can be used to kind of garnish salads. The other stuff I wouldn't do anything but for medicine. The seeds can be utilized for stuff, the drumsticks, the roots. I don't have recipes or anything for that, and I've never eaten anything outside of the leaves. I've had a couple of seeds, and I wouldn't recommend anybody eating that. It doesn't taste good. It's a little bitter, and I'm not sure what medicinal properties the seeds have in terms of eating it. But ultimately, it's a superb plant that can grow here, and does grow here. It just would die back every winter in this area.
And Michael, so if you want to go ahead and do one more wrap up, and then that way we can allow people to get to the keynote.
All right, let me just go to my my last slide so you can see my contact information and roll from there. And I want to thank everybody for participating and for allowing us to take your time or utilize your time accordingly. Thanks for the conversation. I wish I had more time, but you can find us here. We have.
Please keep going. Please keep going.
All right.
I don't need to hear the keynote. I need to hear this. This is important.
Well, yeah, Vanessa, if you should register for VABF, Mike will be speaking there next Sunday, but we have to close the room to give that platform to the keynote. But hate to do it, but.
Vanessa, email me.
Yes, indeed, I will.
And no problem in having more conversation for sure. So please, if you like what you heard, check out the carterfarms.com, carterbrothers.net. You can find some of the seeds there. You can buy a lot of the seeds that I mentioned from those you can buy on Carter Farms. I will send you a plant list for you, a copy of the plant list for sure. Learn Africulture.net. You'll also learn about what we do with that as well. Facebook, Carter Family Farms, Instagram, yada, yada, then emails. So you can email me there. Thank you for the time. I really enjoy it. I like doing this, which is why I take so much time doing it. I love land and I love the plants that grow out of it. Enjoy the keynote. I appreciate everything that you shared, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. You can welcome to the farm anytime that I'm there.
Well, thank you, Michael, for always being so free, sharing information. And I think everybody can clearly see why you were given that Farmer of the Food Shed Award this year. So appreciate you.
Now you're trying to gas me up.
Well deserved. It was well deserved. So we'll see
sure.
everybody in the next session.
All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the keynote. Have a great rest of the weekend. No snow in Virginia, so I'm lobbying for that.
Yes, sir.
All right.